The Skeleton Coast has many names. Sailors once called it the Gates of Hell. Locals call it the land God made in anger. But its truest name, the one whispered by the wind that sweeps through its dunes, is simply the edge of the world. For centuries, ships sailing down Africa's west coast feared this shoreline more than any reef or storm. From the Kunene River in the north to the Swakop River in the south, stretched nearly 500 kilometers of shifting sand, fog, and wreckage. No ports, no shelter. Only waves that never rest and dunes that never end. From a passing ship, the Skeleton Coast looks peaceful, golden sands against the blue Atlantic. But beneath that beauty lies one of Earth's most hostile places. Here, the sea and desert are locked in eternal combat. The cold Benguela Current drags icy water from Antarctica, colliding with warm air from the Namib Desert. The result? A fog so dense it can last for weeks, swallowing the horizon and blinding navigators. For sailors of the 18th and 19th centuries, that fog was a death sentence. Compasses failed near magnetic anomalies. Maps were incomplete. Ships drifted too close, struck hidden sandbars, and broke apart in the surf. When the waves receded, they left behind wrecks, hundreds of them, twisted skeletons of wood and iron scattered across the sand. That's how the Skeleton Coast earned its name, not only from ships, but from what the sea cast ashore: whale bones, seal carcasses, and sometimes the remains of men who tried to walk their way out. Imagine it, your ship wrecked, supplies gone, and before you, nothing but endless dunes shimmering like glass. The ocean at your back, the desert ahead, both merciless. Survivors faced an impossible choice: stay and die of thirst, or walk north toward Angola or south toward Walvis Bay, hundreds of miles away. Few ever made it. Long before European sailors discovered it, the Skeleton Coast was known to the San and Himba peoples who avoided the shore. To them, it was cursed, a realm of wandering spirits and whispering fog. Even today, when wind sweeps the dunes, it carries strange, mournful sounds. Some say the voice of the sea, others the echo of the dead. But nature wasn't the only danger. The coastline hides shifting lagoons and salt pans that act like quicksand, invisible traps until stepped upon. The sand burns by day, freezes by night, and offers no fresh water. Wells dug by castaways filled with brine. Ship logs tell of men drinking engine oil, turtle blood, even seawater in desperation. Among the earliest recorded wrecks was the Dunedin Star, a British liner that met its fate in 1942. But centuries before her, countless whalers, traders, and explorers had already learned what she would: that the Skeleton Coast never forgives mistakes. Each generation of mariners left behind their ghosts, their ships, their stories buried in sand. What makes this coastline remarkable isn't just how many ships it claimed, but how perfectly it preserves them. The Namib Desert is one of the driest places on Earth. Wrecks here never rot. Iron turns orange under the salt. Wood bleaches white beneath the sun. And even decades later, their outlines remain as if time itself froze. To stand among them is to walk through a shipyard of the dead. Broken masts jut from dunes like ribs. Rusted anchors rest where they fell a century ago. Sometimes, half buried in sand, you'll find a nameplate, the last trace of a ship no one remembers. Even modern technology hasn't tamed this place. Planes crash here too. In the mid-20th century, rescue flights sent to find stranded crews often went down themselves, joining the wrecks below. The sand hides them all: engines, propellers, bones, relics of human stubbornness. The Skeleton Coast isn't chaos. It's order, nature's order. Everything that enters becomes part of its silence, and that silence stretches for hundreds of miles, broken only by the cry of seals or the distant thunder of surf. To understand why so many ships perished here, we must understand the forces that built this deadly shore, the currents, winds, and deserts that shaped one of the harshest coastlines on the planet. The skeleton coast didn't become a graveyard by chance. It was engineered by Earth itself. The story begins millions of years before the first ship ever sailed its waters. Before compasses and maps, before human eyes had even seen the ocean, the continent itself was still forming. What we now call Namibia once fit perfectly against South America, joined as part of the supercontinent Gondwana. When Gondwana began to tear apart around 130 million years ago, magma welled up from the mantle, splitting the crust open. As South America drifted west, a deep scar was left behind, the birth of the South Atlantic Ocean. From that separation, the coast of Southwest Africa took shape: steep cliffs, endless dunes, and a continental shelf that drops suddenly into deep, cold water, a landscape built to destroy ships. But it wasn't until the ocean currents found their rhythm that the skeleton coast's true nature emerged. The Benguela Current, cold and relentless, rises from Antarctica and flows northward along Namibia's coast. It brings icy water, fog, and deadly unpredictability. Most imagine Africa's west coast as warm and tropical, but here, temperatures can drop below freezing even at sea level. When the cold Benguela meets the desert's heat, a dense fog forms, stretching up to 50 kilometers inland, hanging low like a shroud. For sailors in the age of canvas and stars, this fog was a nightmare. The horizon vanished, the sun became a pale disk, and ships lost sight of everything. The gentle current that should have carried them north instead pushed them toward shore. Many didn't realize how near they were to disaster until the roar of surf was too close to escape. Unlike most coasts, the skeleton coast offers no gradual shallows, only sudden sandbars and steep shelves rising like invisible walls beneath the water. When a ship hits one, the outcome is immediate. The waves drag the hull sideways, tearing it apart plank by plank. In hours, a proud vessel becomes splinters and rust. But the skeleton coast isn't just shaped by ocean and weather. The land itself conspires against survival. The Namib Desert, bordering the coastline, is the oldest desert on Earth, at least 55 million years old. Its dunes are mountains of sand, some over 300 meters high, sculpted endlessly by wind. These dunes move, creeping inland and sometimes swallowing wrecks whole. To a pilot flying overhead, the dunes seem alive, waves frozen mid-motion. But on the ground they are deathly still, radiating heat so intense it distorts the air. When a shipwrecked crew reached shore, they found not a beach but a labyrinth of shifting sand. No shade, no landmarks, no mercy. Even at dawn, the desert was a furnace. At night, men froze beside fires they'd lit for warmth only hours earlier. For centuries, the skeleton coast remained one of the least explored regions on Earth. Maps labeled it simply Desert Unexplored. British Admiralty charts of the early 1900s warned, no fresh water, impassable dunes, no hope of rescue. Yet despite its dangers, this coastline is strangely alive. The cold Benguela Current creates one of the richest marine ecosystems on Earth. The fog sustains life in an otherwise barren desert. Beetles climb dunes each morning to collect dew from mist. Jackals scavenge among the bones of seals and whales. Elephants and lions, adapted to desert life, travel from inland riverbeds to fog-fed oases. It's a paradox, a place where death and survival coexist. This collision of extremes shaped human exploration. For centuries, the skeleton coast was a blank space on maps, a region sailors avoided and explorers feared. But in the late 19th and early 20th centuries, curiosity began to replace fear. Europeans wanted to know what lay beyond the dunes. In 1898, German explorer Lieutenant Rudolf Schulze led one of the first recorded expeditions inland. His team battled sandstorms and mirages, discovering that the desert wasn't lifeless. It hid valleys, dry riverbeds, and strange wildlife. Later explorers followed, drawn by rumors of diamonds glinting in the sand. Those rumors proved true. In 1908, a railway worker near Lüderitz found a sparkling stone in the sand. It was a diamond. Soon the coast was swarming with prospectors. The German colonial administration declared the entire region a Sperrgebiet, a forbidden zone, and mining towns rose overnight. Kolmanskop became the most famous, a town of luxury and ghosts. Mansions with marble floors and crystal chandeliers stood in the dunes, built by men who believed the desert could be conquered. But the Skeleton Coast had other plans. When the diamond rush ended and the workers left, the desert returned. Dunes crept through open windows and swallowed homes. Today, Kolmanskop stands half-buried, a silent monument to human ambition, defeated by sand. Further north, the coast kept claiming ships, and none became more haunting than the Edward Bolen. On September 5, 1909, the German cargo ship sailed through thick fog near Conception Bay. The captain believed he was miles offshore. In truth, he was heading straight toward land. Without warning, the ship struck a sandbank and came to rest. When the fog lifted, the crew realized they were stranded, not in water, but on land. Over time, the sea retreated, leaving the Edward Bolen half buried in sand, nearly 400 meters from the shore. Today, she lies tilted, frozen mid-journey across the desert, her bow pointing inland as if still trying to escape. From above, she looks like a ghost ship sailing through dunes, the most haunting image of the Skeleton Coast. Visitors who stand beside her describe the same feeling. Silence so complete it hums in your ears, the whisper of sand brushing against steel, and the faint echo of an engine that hasn't run in a century. Yet the Edward Bolen is only one of hundreds. Each has its own tragedy. 3 decades later, another ship met an even darker fate, the Dunedin Star. In November 1942, the British cargo liner was carrying supplies for Allied forces in North Africa when she struck a submerged obstacle near the coast. Taking on water fast, Captain R.B. Lee made the impossible choice, to beach the ship deliberately to save his crew. He ran her aground near the mouth of the Kunene River, right in the heart of the Skeleton Coast. The crew and passengers, including women and children, reached shore, but their ordeal had only begun. They were trapped between the desert and the sea, with no way to signal for help. The nearest settlement was hundreds of kilometers away. The rescue that followed became one of the most extraordinary operations in maritime history. The Royal Navy, South African Air Force, and local rescuers all tried to reach them, but every effort failed at first. Aircraft dropped supplies, but the wind scattered them. Vehicles bogged down in sand. Even a plane that landed to deliver food was abandoned, adding another wreck to the desert. Days turned into weeks. The survivors endured scorching days and freezing nights, rationing food and water while the Dunedin Star lay broken offshore. Finally, a convoy led by Major H.P. Pompey Keene pushed through the dunes and reached them after an 80-day ordeal. All but 2 were saved. Today, the Dunedin Star lies rusting in shallow water, visible at low tide, a silent monument to courage and endurance. Between these famous wrecks lie dozens more: whalers, trawlers, cargo vessels, even a passenger ship named Tong Ta that ran aground in 1954. Their bones line the coast like milestones in a story of struggle between man and nature. But the Skeleton Coast's mysteries go beyond shipwrecks. Deep inland, the desert hides relics of human presence older than any nation. Archaeologists have found stone tools, pottery, and shell middens showing that ancient people once survived here. They hunted seals, gathered shellfish, and followed fog-fed rivers that snake through the dunes. The same fog that doomed ships sustained life for millennia. Even stranger are the natural formations that seem almost supernatural, vast fields of roaring dunes that emit deep vibrating sounds when the sand shifts. Scientists call it singing sand, but to early travelers it was the voice of spirits. The dunes hum like distant thunder echoing across miles. In the 20th century, this region drew scientists, filmmakers, and photographers from around the world. The Skeleton Coast's alien beauty, its sharp contrasts and eerie silence, made it feel like another planet. NASA even used parts of the Namib to train astronauts in the 1960s, simulating lunar landscapes. Despite its reputation, the Skeleton Coast isn't untouched. Modern diamond mining continues in restricted areas, and tourism brings small groups of visitors who fly in by light aircraft. From the air, the view is surreal. Dunes merging into surf, shipwrecks glinting like bones, and seal colonies stretching for miles. At Cape Cross, one of the coast's few landmarks, stands a replica of the stone cross placed by Portuguese navigator Diogo Cao in 1486, one of the earliest European symbols in southern Africa. His expedition never explored further. Fog and surf drove them back. That moment marked the beginning of 5 centuries of failed attempts to tame this coast. Every generation has left something behind: a cross, a wreck, a name carved into metal. But the desert always takes it back. To the Himba and Topnar peoples who still live near the coast, this isn't a wasteland. It's home. They understand the rhythm of fog and tide, the path of dry rivers, and the secret wells that appear after rare rains. Their traditions speak of ancestors who walk with the mist, guiding hunters and protecting those who respect the land. Modern visitors often miss that balance. They see only desolation. But to those who belong here, the Skeleton Coast is alive, harsh but sacred, silent but full of memory. The modern world still studies this coastline to understand how nature reclaims what humans abandon. Shipwrecks that once stood upright are now half swallowed by sand. Metal ribs crumble into dust. Wooden beams turn to salt-white fossils. Yet the desert preserves too: boots, bottles, even handwritten logs found intact after decades without rain. Every wreck tells a human story. A captain who refused to leave his ship. Sailors who built shelters from planks and waited for a rescue that never came. Wireless operators tapping their final SOS into static. Each fragment whispers of endurance, fear, and the thin line between hope and despair. Marine archaeologists still search the shallows using drones and sonar. Each discovery rewrites navigation history around southern Africa. Some ships carried ivory, copper, or gold. Others were simple trawlers lost in fog. All ended the same way, swallowed by the indifferent ocean. The coast's danger lies in its geography. The Benguela Current sweeps northward, fast and cold, driving ships toward a lee shore with no harbors. Even a small error could prove fatal. Winds rise suddenly, visibility drops, and powerful surf breaks with enough force to tear steel apart. Once grounded, escape is impossible, because this landscape isn't dead, it's still moving. Dunes migrate meters each year, burying wrecks and revealing new ones. The sea shifts the shoreline. What was ocean becomes land. What was desert becomes reef. The Skeleton Coast constantly rewrites itself. Nature, in its patience, has undone centuries of ambition. Colonial maps, mining empires, and rescue plans, all erased by wind and salt. What remains is purity. Raw elements in balance: sand, sea, fog, bone. The name Skeleton Coast may sound grim, but it carries truth. These bones, of whales, seals, and ships, form the skeleton of a story about limits. It reminds us that mastery over nature is an illusion. Even the strongest steel bends to time. Even the most determined explorer must bow to the wind. The Skeleton Coast teaches humility more than fear. It shows how easily the line between survival and surrender can vanish in mist. At sunset, the desert glows red and gold, and the ocean turns black. Wind moans through empty hulls, a low metallic note echoing across miles. Standing there, you understand why sailors once called this place the Gates of Hell, and why others, seeing its beauty, call it the Edge of Heaven. Here, the end of the world and its beginning feel the same. Today, Namibia protects much of this coastline as part of the Skeleton Coast National Park, one of the wildest reserves on Earth. Few are allowed to enter, permits are limited, and no roads cross most of it. The isolation is deliberate, a recognition that some places should remain beyond control. Satellite images show dunes marching inland like tides of time. Each year, another wreck vanishes under sand, another mystery sealed. But the stories endure, in archives, in the memories of those who survived, and in the silence that follows the waves. When fog rolls in, it's easy to imagine the ghosts of sailors and explorers walking beside you, their voices lost in the surf. Not haunting, but warning. That wonder always comes with risk, and that beauty here is inseparable from peril. And when you finally leave the Skeleton Coast, the sound of it follows. The whisper of wind through ribs of iron, the rhythm of waves breaking against eternity. Because this coast, more than any other on Earth, reminds us that time is the ultimate ocean, vast, patient, and undefeated.